It's WST Sunday Live, hosted by Connor Hrabchak, Lyss Houde, and Jacob Stoller.
Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to another edition of WST Sunday Live. My name's Connor Hrabchak, joined today, as always, by Lyss Houde and Jacob Stoller. And we have got a jam-packed show today, a banger of a show, as Hustler would say. The Jets returned to action last night, a 4-3 shootout wins. Shootouts, those still exist in Jets land, apparently. They got the win last night, 9 straight wins, franchise record. Canada beat the U.S. on Thursday. Vladislav Namestnikov extended. So we have tons to talk about on today's show. We're going to start with the Jets. This is the Jets show. It's why people are here this morning. So we'll start with talking about the win over the Blues last night, then shift into Canada-U.S. on Thursday night, the 3-2 overtime win, Connor McDavid with the McGolden goal. And then we will obviously move on to our segments, trending up, trending down, and one burning question later on. Thank you, everyone, for joining us bright and early on a Sunday. Lyss, how are we doing this morning?
I'm doing well. I was saying to Connor before we got online, look, a lot of people were talking online. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we have to go back to watching NHL hockey after this awesome tournament that was the Four Nations. And let me be super clear when I say I loved the Four Nations and I thought the hockey was so fun. It was so awesome. But I was so fired up to get back to Jets hockey. I missed Jets hockey so much over the last little stretch. And it was so great to get back kind of to it and watching it because, man, oh man, how lucky are we to watch some incredible hockey every other night from this club. It's real fun to watch. They're really fun to be following right now. So I'm pretty fired up to be back watching the last stretch of the regular season here.
100%. The first period or two for me were a little weird. Like just seeing like bottom 6 NHL players play was just weird, you know, like the bottom 6 in the Four Nations were not bottom 6 players. But yeah, I agree to come back to the number 1 team in the NHL is pretty sweet. Jacob, how are you doing this morning?
Good. I'm kind of on the opposite of the spectrum. I'm kind of coming down from the high. You know, you go from
like a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm on a different wavelength list. Like we have to go from the craziest hockey, high intensity, high stakes, now to sort of this run to the playoffs that like the Jets have like a 93% chance of winning first, according to Money Puck. If they've got first locked up, not much to play for right now. I don't know. I miss the Four Nations.
Well, no, that's fair. And it was so funny that you say that. Like, I can't remember who it was. One of the players, maybe it was it was the Sens. It was the Sens. They're like, Brady Tkachuk's got to get back. Like, they got some crazy games to play. The Jets were like, Connor Hellebuyck, Josh Morrissey, don't even bother coming to St. Louis. It's Monday. Fine. Like, yeah. I know what you mean. Like, the intensity of where the Jets need to be right now, not that high. Like, you know, they just play some hockey games. It is what it is. So I see what you're saying, but I think I've just grown, like, very emotionally attached to this club. So
there you go. Yeah. I mean, let's get to the game last night because I leaned over to my dad when Neil Pionk took the double minor and said, if they get a point out of this game, they are lucky. And not only did they get a point out of it, they got 2, which it was ridiculous. And St. Louis scored on the penalty, and the Jets still were able to score with 27 seconds left, fight through overtime where they were the second best team in OT, I would say, and then get into the shootout. Jacob, what were your thoughts on last night's game and the Jets' ability to just pull another one out? I mean, it's ridiculous how they're able to do this almost nightly, it seems.
Yeah, my first thought is they definitely didn't deserve to win that game for a lot of points. Yeah. I think St. Louis was the better club for, let's say, 40 of the 60 minutes, or let's say 70% of the 5-on-5 play. I thought Seattle was better. I don't even know what the numbers would indicate, but I thought
it was pretty even, actually.
Yeah,
looking at natural centric,
yeah, but I don't know. St. Louis is a better team than we give credit to, especially since Montgomery's taken over. I know they're kind of out of it in the playoff, like 8 points behind or something, 7 or 8. But yeah, I'm not going to draw too many big picture takeaways from it, other than I thought Eric Comrie was really solid again and should be playing a lot more down the stretch.
I agree. And
should I give my
Jets...
rant now, or are we talking about it later?
Well, we could talk about Comrie now. Yeah, let's do it. Go for it.
Well, I won't go too crazy, but I wrote a piece for Sportsnet.ca last night, and it was just about how Comrie played well, but that they should consider playing him more down the stretch. So, what percentage of games do you guys think that Comrie's played so far? If you don't know offhand,
20%,
20. Yeah. What do you think, Les?
I'd go with that too.
Okay, 25. Ding, ding, ding.
Okay.
Ish.
Yeah.
Right.
Ding, ding. Yeah.
But the last couple of years, to put this graphic together, Connor Hellebuyck's workload before and after the All-Star break, there hasn't been a huge difference. So in 22-23, he played 77% of the games before the break. And then after the break, he played 80%, which was like crazy high. I believe the second or third highest in the league at that point.
And that's different from 77% by like a game.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But also keep in mind at that point, right, the Jets were fighting because their slip was around, then they were fighting for a playoff spot.
Right to the end. Yeah.
Last year, before the All-Star break, he played 75% of the games. After the break, 71%. Okay. Probably a difference of a game or two, right? Mm-hmm. But the point I'm making here is there hasn't really been a dip, partially because there hasn't been a chance to be. But now, there's 25 games left for the Jets. In my opinion, there's no reason he should be playing more than 15 of the remaining 25 regular season games. Hellebuyck. Like, Comrie gives him a chance to win. Hellebuyck, these past years, not only the Jets have a lot to play for, we've seen what happened to Hellebuyck the last 2 years. And you can't convince me fatigue did not play a factor into that. Take this year where the Jets, again, don't have much to play for. Mm-hmm. And he just played 4 Nations instead of having a break. You know, and his already massive regular season workload just was a lot heavier. So, and last night was another example. To me, I thought Comrie was solid. Ignore the numbers for a second, guys. The first period, for example, I love the save he made on Buchnevich at point blank. It was like under a minute in. Huge high danger save. Then you go to the second period, the last minute, that top line of Scheifele, Connor, Vilardi was hemmed in to their zone for like maybe even over a minute. Comrie made 3 great saves. Shootout, he was excellent. Mono versus Thomas Buchnevich, he was solid. That's all you could ask for and more from a backup goalie. Play him 10 games remaining stretch. Yeah. That's my crazy scorch take.
I don't think it's a crazy scorch take. I think the thing is, it's just like, isn't the whole reason that this is a conversation to begin with is because Hellebuyck just wants to play all the time? Like,
yes.
So are you kind of saying that they need to be like, sorry, buddy, too bad you're not playing a couple of these games?
I would think that they internally have had this discussion because Arniel said, I don't know which game it was, something about how they kind of chart out the workload with him and Wade Flaherty like in advance somewhat. So I'm sure they have an idea of it. I'm sure they'll have that conversation. If this is going to happen, I'm sure they'll have that conversation. Who knows how that will go, though, right? Like, Hellebuyck is very set on what he thinks is right and will help him. And I'm here for the argument that he doesn't want to get out of his rhythm, but sometimes you got to kind of take the keys away here, because I'm not talking about him. Yeah. I'm not talking about like load management galore where he's not playing. I'm just saying like go down to a normal workload for the next month and a bit. It's really not.
I'm 100% on board, and I think it's the sort of thing that like this year feels different for a lot of people. I think it feels different for the players. I think it feels different for fans. I think it feels different. This might be the sort of thing where it's like, hey, buddy, like we're winning 16 games in the postseason this year. Like, get ready, kind of thing. And maybe the attitude changes. I don't know. I'm not sure. Like, I could see it maybe being a little bit more of a welcome idea this year, but I don't know.
Yeah, I will. My one pushback will be that Connor Hellebuyck thinks that he's a rhythm goalie, and we all describe him as that, and he needs to stand with him. But you can get in rhythm even with resting. I agree. Like, I agree with you. Yeah.
Here's what I'm trying to say. If you like, I for this piece, I obviously went to look at like the workloads of goaltenders, and the only one that's playing at the level he is really consistently is Vasilevsky. Okay. Every other elite goaltender is playing, 60-65% of the games. Okay. So I'm not saying that Connor Hellebuyck can get out of his rhythm. I'm not saying he plays every second night. I'm saying instead of playing 3 of every 4 games, he's playing 2 of every 3.
Yeah.
Just a different way to look at it. Like I'm just, I really don't think I agree with both of your counters because that is for sure going to be an element to this here. But I think if you look at it from a logic perspective, it's ridiculous.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm looking forward to that piece because
it's already
a pretty solid argument. Oh, it's already out. Okay. Well, after the show, people can go check it out. Sportsnet.ca. There we go. Anyways, let's move on off of the goaltending and go to Gabe Vilardi. Another 2 goals last night. The clutch goal with 27 seconds left. The best net front player in the NHL, just continues to establish that reputation as at least one of the best, if not the best. Lyss, I know you're a big Gabe Vilardi fan. I know we all are. We all love his skill set. Last night, another clutch goal. What are you seeing from him? He had 2 goals in the game going into the break against the Islanders, and now 2 weeks later, 2 goals in the win over the Blues.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I love about Gabe Vilardi and where we're at with this team right now is I think they know exactly who he is, and they are kind of ready to go with him, right? Like they understand what that skill set is, what he's capable of doing, and he is obviously the goal. This first goal of the game was kind of a funny, goofy one. Like it's a little bit less of a Gabe Vilardi one, but just nice hands, finish that up and put the puck in that little corner there. It was awesome. But that second goal, you want that guy in position to get touches on pucks, especially in a situation with 6-on-5 like that, where you're just trying to get pucks on net, create some chaos and all that sort of stuff. And that deflection was a work of art. Like that's, you show that to teams if you're like, okay, if you're teaching kids how to deflect pucks and what they should look like and how to kind of change the direction of that. Oh my gosh, it was perfect. It was so great. Then he doesn't play in overtime because I think this team knows exactly who this player is and what this player can do. And is that an argument that you could make? Sure. Not the fastest guy out there. And I think that overtime is a time where you really got to prioritize someone who can kind of keep up with the pace of what the other team's going to put out there. And, the Winnipeg Jets are if you look at who they put out in overtime, it's usually their guys that can play with a little bit more of that speed, really good straight line speed, guys like Lowry, Namestnikov, and then your classic Connor Scheifele's who are good skaters as well. So I think Gabe Vilardi is really coming into his own this year, and I'm really enjoying watching that top line play. And like you mentioned, Jacob, we kind of alluded to, they still have their flaws and they don't have good games every night. We know this, but those 2 goals from Gabe Vilardi were super fun last night, and that's a player that, holy smokes, if he can really, really start cooking like he kind of is, we're getting to that point, that is a scary man to have to play against in tough situations.
Oh, yeah. I will say it like you talk about the speed element. Cole Perfetti got an overtime shift last night for one of the first times in that I can remember. Like I remember last year, Kyle Connor was out of the lineup for that extended stretch, and then they would go into overtime a few times, and it was kind of like, okay, where's Cole Perfetti? Because like you need that skill element, right? He was in there last night. Pretty interesting out there in overtime. But I want to ask you, Jacob, about Kyle Connor because he didn't score last night, but he had 10 shots on goal.
Did he have 10 shots on goal?
Yeah. So he was absolutely flying. And Joel Hofer made some insane saves, like backdoor blocker saves. And then Kyle Connor, of course, scores the shootout winner. And I don't know if there's really a player I would rather take in the shootout one-on-one with the goalie than Kyle Connor, because he can beat you with the shot, he can beat you with the hands. It doesn't matter. What did you see from Kyle Connor last night? Obviously coming out of the scratch on Thursday in the Four Nations final, and then having 10 shots on goal without scoring, but he was buzzing.
Quickly, I think he should have been scratched.
In the final?
Yeah, I think it was ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
I get it. He didn't score, but I think he deserved. I think that USA overthought this. He has the most goals by American player. He's more than just a one-trick pony scorer. I get why you don't bring Tage Thompson, but you brought Kyle Connor, not just because of his prowess, but he's an all-around good player, and when he doesn't have the puck, he goes and gets it. So that's my thought.
Let me just say, Matthew Tkachuk put a message in his group chat that he's going to play through this injury that might be season ending. So he had to play because of the group chat. And then they scratched Kyle Connor and then lost the game. And Matthew Tkachuk didn't play the final 2 periods and now might be out for the season. So anyways, carry on.
I don't want to lose the Connor train of thought here, and we're going to get back to it. But just a quick aside, do you think that USA's medical staff knew what Tkachuk was playing through? Because if they did, Florida's going to be pissed. If they didn't, what's the point of them? Like, I'm very curious how you get to a point
Good way to put it. Yeah.
where Matthew Tkachuk is playing through a season-ending injury.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I
and then
feel
also from the perspective of the coaching staff, medical staff, whatever, as well. It's like, if you know that there's a chance that in what these guys are calling the biggest game of their lives, like a very, very big game here, a guy who's like, yeah, man, I might only be able to play 4 minutes out there. Like, wouldn't you rather play the
guy who's
highest
healthy?
scoring American goal? Like, whatever. I know. I totally
But
agree
like,
with you.
how
It's
does it
very
happen?
weird.
My point is, like, they
I
know
don't
he's
even know.
banged
Yeah.
up. So either two things happened. They knew he's playing through this, and they completely. I'm talking about, like, if this is Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final, you play through whatever. We're paying you. It's you're our asset. You're our employee. We all decide whatever. But for a best on best tournament that we're like 2 days off, like in 3 days, guys, we're not going to forget about this. We never will. But it's like,
Mhm.
like, even when Canada won, like, it was sick. Trust me. But like the lifting, like, it was like, all right. Like,
Yeah. No, I totally
come
agree
on.
with you.
Like, it was great. It was great. There
But,
was
like,
a lot of pride. But if they beat Finland when it was a Canada-US rivalry game, great. So
Right.
Matthew Tkachuk loses, like, he's done. It's all shocking. So
And
It's
the
rumored-
McAvoy thing was weird, and then there's been
Yeah.
some weird stuff with like
Yeah,
Kaprizov's
that's a
injury in the
great
last
point.
couple of years.
like
Like,
who is the medical staff?
the Minnesota Wild medical staff, I feel like there's something goofy going on there. Like, I'm ready to start listening to the conspiracies if there's something kind of strange, because no, I agree with you that it's a very, very weird situation, and it's the sort of thing I was talking to my dad, who is not a Kachuk Brothers fan, to put it lightly, and when they were both banged up there and whatever, I was like, I get that you don't want them to play. I get that you're like, yeah, screw those guys, whatever sort of thing. I was like, I feel you, kind of. But I'm like, for the
Yeah.
sake of the tournament, I don't want anyone to walk away from this with an injury. Shea Theodore, it's already bad enough. If Kachuk leaves hurt, McAvoy leaves hurt, and some other guy, like, this is why the NHL hasn't allowed their players to play in the Olympics and all these big things, is because of that
Right.
liability stuff. So I'm like, I don't want anybody getting hurt. I want everyone to walk out being like super, super strong advocates for continuing this sort of thing in the future. And yeah, if Stanley Cup defending one of the best players on that team and one of the best players in the league gets hurt in that turn, like, not great, not awesome.
I apologize for wrote the original question. The question was about Kyle Connor.
Yeah.
Kyle Connor was sick. Hofer stonewalled him like
Yeah.
3 or 4 of those 10 times. Seven of the shots were on the power play, I believe, or something like that. Casey had a great penalty kill sequence in the second period where he interrupted a pass around the point, but the puck went the other way, and then like 20 seconds later, there was a loose puck in the slot, and he swatted away. And it's just, besides Lowry, he played the second most penalty kill minutes. I just love what Kyle Connor's become as an all-around player. Hopefully this scratch ignites him even more. Like, now you got an angry Mark Scheifele, a bitter Kyle Connor, a devastated Josh Morrissey,
And Connor
after-
Hellebuyck.
And a fired up Connor Hellebuyck.
and a fired up Connor Hellebuyck. Like, this tournament, for the Jets' sake, pretty nice.
Pretty good.
But I
Pretty
was
good.
worried though. Like, I was thinking, because I was like, Connor Hellebuyck, no, like, I saw the eyes on that man during that game. Like, that is a guy who's come back fired up and ready to win a Stanley Cup. Like, don't get me wrong, but I was worried that Kyle Connor, there might be a little bit of a like monkey back situation there too. Like, I feel like you can, that motivation, like, it can go both ways. Like, there could be a little bit of like, not necessarily bruised ego, but just like your confidence if you're thrown off with that, like, might not be great. But yeah, 10 shots. And then you're right. Like, because 10 shots does start to make sense, because I was watching a lot of Kyle Connor shots in that game, and every time he didn't score, I was like, oh, come on. Like, I feel like he needs one to kind of get back into the rhythm. And though it doesn't count in the same regard, I think that shootout winner was huge for that. Like, just the guy who's been denying you all night. I think it was a great shot. Only goal of the shootout. And yeah, didn't even need to send out their third shooter, who would have been Gabe Vilardi. I just need to put, perfectly clear, set the
I
record
think
straight.
so.
Gabe Vilardi would have had to have been the third shooter there, because Nikolai
on fire.
Lyss isn't going to go out there, and Gabe Vilardi is the best. So it was really awesome to see that, because yeah, Kyle Connor is I'm really liking what he's becoming. I understood the scratch, but I didn't agree with it. It's one of those things that it's like I see where the thought process is going for Team USA, but I think it's a Galaxy brain take as well. So I think
Absolutely.
he's a guy that I would really like to see prove those guys wrong in the same way that Mark Scheifele has proved Don Sweeney wrong in the last couple months.
Yes, for sure. And that all plays into the point that Jacob was saying there, that this tournament went pretty well for the Jets. And if you're a Jets fan who lives in Canada, even better. So let's quickly I want to talk about the 9-game winning streak. And I know 8 of them came 2 weeks ago and before that. But here's Scott Arniel after the game quickly on his thoughts. There was no assembled media, so the Jets posted the video of him speaking to Paul Edmonds and Kelly Moore and Mitch Clinton on CJOB. So thank you to the Jets for posting that. Very appreciated for my article for Legal Curve, the takeaways, and for this show, getting Scott Arniel's comments. So let's get to Scott Arniel. Here's what he had to say on the 9-game winning streak, a new franchise record.
On it, but I want to ask you about 9 straight wins and a franchise record and the anatomy of a streak and what it takes to put this kind of streak together for a team.
You're not going to like my answer. Let's just worry about the next game, one at a time.
You knew I had to ask.
No, you know, it's an awesome accomplishment.
Yep.
I do not want to take it away from the players, what they've done. It's been fantastic. And this one's kind of weird because it comes after almost a 2-week break. So I'm more proud of the guys, how we came out after being off so long. Practiced hard this week, attention to detail in practice, and then come out tonight and had real good structure and played hard and got ourselves 2 points.
So there it is, Scott Arniel. Jacob's just getting back.
Sorry,
there we go.
Chargers. I got to
All
plug
good.
something in.
All good.
I was so mad at what Scott was saying. I had to dip.
Guy that just had to get up and leave. Yeah. No, that was Scott Arniel on the 9-game winning streak. And just a few other things that we can discuss if you guys want. The Winnipeg Jets are 29-5-1 when Dylan Sandberg starts and finishes the game this year. The Winnipeg Jets are 31-0-1 when leading after 2 periods, which is like by far the best in the league. And
Actually,
the Sportsnet broadcast, it's not?
I just looked. The Devils and Leafs have similar records.
Oh, really?
I know.
Interesting. Okay. Because I was like 31 times leading after 2 and winning.
I know.
It's pretty hard to be better than that. I don't know. That's crazy, but that's impressive.
That's nuts.
Impressive.
But the Sportsnet broadcast, great broadcast last night, almost jinxed it. Like a minute into the game, or a minute into the 3rd period, they brought up the stat 30-0-1 when leading after 2, never lost in regulation. And then there we were. The Jets were losing in regulation with like a minute left.
Blame Sean Reynolds.
I always blame Sean
Rennie.
Reynolds personally.
Blame Rennie. No, but those 2 stats specifically, and the Dylan Sandberg one, 29-5-1 when he starts and finishes the game, is incredible, especially when you take into account last night that Josh Morrissey wasn't playing. He was the top pair defenseman, him and Neil Pionk. And Neil Pionk had a rough game, a few penalties, few turnovers as well. So the 31-0-1 after 2, I mean, is there anything to take away from that? Is that just the Jets are a dominant team at kind of shutting things down and maybe getting a little lucky in the case of last night, Lyss?
Oh, I mean, this is a situation right where I think it goes to show that we just believe that this team is a little bit different this year. Like, this team knows how to lock in. Their mental toughness, for lack of better terms, has been impressive this year. We talk about the back-to-back Florida games. We talk about the second Toronto game. We talk about these games that mattered a little bit more, those Saturday home games against the Minnesota Wild. Like, this is a team that has been able to kind of turn on the Jets when they really needed to and stuff. And I think that record, while it's essentially as perfect as you can get in the situation of going into the 3rd with a lead, also going into the 3rd with a lead 31 times is pretty sweet.
Yeah.
It's nice to see this team not only can score the goals to get them up to that level, but they're able to kind of play and defend that, right? Because if you're an elite goal scoring team, this is like a Columbus Blue Jackets problem, right? Where this is a team that can score 5 goals a game, but then all of a sudden they give up 6 and it's like, oh crap, how did we get here, sort of thing. The Winnipeg Jets are playing a little bit of a different, the defensive style of hockey that we've talked about and everything. You need to have both in order to succeed. You need to be able to lock it down and play some really solid, tight in zone defense and all that sort of stuff. But if you do that for 60 minutes and you don't score a single goal, you're still not going to win the hockey game. So I think they have a really nice balance going on right now. And I think that's really impressive. And that's why yesterday going into that 3rd, even after they gave up that goal pretty early in, I was like, I have a feeling this is going to be a strong period from this club. And it was a good period for sure. And, a couple big goals. The one big goal there and then kind of holding it down in overtime without Josh Morrissey looked a little bit different. Wasn't the nicest overtime period I've seen, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Eric Comrie was looking like overtime Jordan Binnington out there. Like he had some really great saves in that overtime. And then, they kind of sealed the deal and it was really, really nice to see. And it kind of was a great way to get over the hump of that 9-game winning streak. Yeah, I agreed on the Sportsnet broadcast. They showed the graphic of how many 8 and 7-game winning streaks the Winnipeg Jets have had since their return to Winnipeg. All of them have been in the last 2 years, except for one in 2017. Like they had one this year, 2 last year, like all that sort of stuff. So it's really nice to see them kind of cross over that hump. It's like a symbolic way to show that I think this team is a little bit better than the Jets of the last couple seasons as well.
Well, what's crazy about that is to start the year, they had an 8-gamer and a 7-gamer, and now we're at 9. So someone do the quick math on how many wins that is in a row coming in a season. And now they're at 40 wins, first team in the NHL to 40 with the win last night.
25 of their wins have been a part
in
of
a row. A part of a streak. Yeah. 8, 7, 9. Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
It's insane. Yeah. And I wrote this for Legal Curve. They have as good a chance as ever to make it 10 because their next game on Monday is against the last place San Jose Sharks. Or second last place. Maybe Chicago's last now. Haven't checked in a while.
Their schedule here this next little bit is pretty.
Then they get like Ottawa with no Hrabchak, maybe Nashville. Yeah.
Well,
Philly.
Ottawa's missing everybody. They're Shane Pinto's out. And
when this team's
Norris
rolling, they can beat anyone.
Further to your point that they should be maybe mixing in a few calm restarts there. Although they do have a back-to-back this week coming up, so he'll definitely play one of those. With Ottawa and then Nashville's the second night of the back-to-back. Maybe they flip it.
They play Philadelphia on Saturday.
Saturday. Yeah. That's the upcoming schedule. One last thing before we move on to the Canada-USA game that I want to talk about. Vladislav Namestnikov signed an extension yesterday. Prior to the game, a 2-year, $6 million contract, so $3 million over the next 2 seasons, starting after this one. 32-year-old center. Has 29 points in 53 games so far this year. Jacob, your thoughts on this extension? I thought it was a solid piece of work for solid depth, especially in a rising cap environment.
Yeah, they basically signed him to a marginal raise. Yeah, and it's funny because they did that. So he signed his extension after the half season that he played. With Winnipeg, right?
Yeah.
And he signed the 2-year deal. In those 2 years, so last year he scored, was it 40 points or something, or close to it?
Yeah. It was 36 or 37, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. This year he's on pace for 44. I was talking to a scout that's seen Namestnikov throughout the years, and I was like, when is the best version of Namestnikov? He's played for 7 different teams, or 8 different teams. And he was like, right now, this is the best version of Vlad. And I can totally see that. I can't say I knew enough about him before other than just little stuff.
He was a guy.
He's a Jack, just a guy. Yeah. And you look at it, and he signed that $2 million extension 2 years ago before we even really saw him thrive. And with the rising cap environment, percentage of the cap wise, it's actually just like a marginal raise. So to get him at that number is great work by Chevy. I've said many times here, Sportsnet.ca, I think I would like to have someone else as a second line center if I was running things. But I think a lot about how you always want those guys that can jump up in the lineup in a pinch. And Vlad is that. So even on an ideal cup contender, so to speak, he does have that ability to be able to jump up. I do think, unless they do find a Brock Nelson or Chevy pulls a rabbit out of a hat, Namestnikov is probably a lot better than some of the options we've even discussed, as much as that pains me to say. So I really like the extension. It's a very, very manageable cap hit and good work by Chevy. I mean, I'm curious if you reach out to how far negotiations went with other free agents, if at all, but nice to see that one got done.
Did any of us mention Namestnikov? I remember last week I asked you both who we thought was the most likely to sign.
I was thinking about that conversation.
Sandberg. Yeah, not we totally should have in hindsight. Obviously, he's the only guy that signed, so it's easier to say that. But I like this deal for a lot of reasons that you outlined there, Jacob. And $3 million, Vlad has been the 2C on the number 1 team in the NHL through 57 games, however many it is now. And $3 million a year is fourth line center money. Good fourth line center money. And Vlad would be a good fourth line center. So I really don't hate it. He's a good depth option who can go up in the lineup in a pinch, like you said.
It's kind of like that when I was in Toronto, like I wasn't covering the team or anything. I never covered the Leafs, but when
good.
Set the record.
Good thing good thing you put that out there. Yeah.
Yuck. But no, before I was like covering NHL games, when I was doing the Marlies, I remember because I was like paying attention a lot to the Leafs, just the vitriol towards like Alex Kerfoot. Like everyone hated him because he wasn't, the prototypical top 6 player, but he always found his way in there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of similar to Vlad, where it's like you maybe hyper focus on it, but if you get an injury or two, like those are the guys that you are like, oh, I wish we had a guy like this. So it's nice to have that in your holster. And I think that Chevy did a good job in locking it up now. And it's one less thing to do in this offseason where they have like $100 million in cap. It feels like.
Yeah, it feels that way. It's pretty wild too how another pending UFA chooses to stay in Winnipeg, and
I wanted
as he loves it here.
Yeah, like I'm gonna bring up Mike McIntyre. I think it is for 2 different reasons. One, I'm excited to read it. I haven't read it yet, but McIntyre put out a piece with Winnipeg Free Press. I didn't believe it was yesterday. It was probably in the Saturday paper about talking to some of the guys who are very adamant that people have the wrong impression of the city of Winnipeg, and they, truly believe to their core that this is a good place to play, a good place to be, a good place to bring your family and those sorts of things, which I think is a really nice piece to kind of get to read as maybe some people who sometimes feel a little bit dejected when you hear about all these players that, kind of just brush it off and don't even consider it as an option, even though they've never spent any time here and stuff like that. But the other thing I wanted to bring up, because I believe this was him, put out a piece as well, kind of investigating the last few Stanley Cup champions and what their trade deadlines looked like and what those kind of acquisition pieces looked like. And the last cup contenders have at the trade deadline in that month leading up to it, they've acquired a lot less. It's not usually the teams that take the big swing and get in the hugest piece that end up going through and winning the cup. So this is a guy that I'd like to see him happy and encouraged and ready to go going into the playoffs, because what if they don't get a 2C? What if they get a 2C and it's horrible and doesn't work whatsoever, because you never know what the chemistry is going to be like? What if you get in 2C and he's hurt? This is a guy that's going to get moved up into the lineup like the Alex Kerfoots of the world the moment that there's an injury or something like that. Even if they make a trade and he gets pushed out, if someone gets hurt, if something's not working, he's the guy that's going to go up there. So I think it's really important to have that guy kind of locked in and ready to go as well. So I think for a couple different reasons, this is a good move. And yeah, $3 million a year is pretty negligible with the way the salary cap's going to look in the next little bit.
Can I say one thing about the player poll that DeMello? So in Mike's article, just one thing.
Just one thing.
I agree with it. No. Can you imagine? DeMello said something in Mike's piece that was my complete thought. To say that Winnipeg's the worst city, you're just going from the airport to the arena.
I saw that too. Yeah.
From the Fairmont to like Highs. Crazy bold take. Personally, I don't spend a crazy amount of time downtown. Like I go there, I feel like I'm there every night because of the games, but like my off time. So, and I can tell you, I love a lot about Winnipeg. My favorite restaurants, a lot of them aren't even there. So I think the better way to phrase it is that maybe Winnipeg is the worst road city. Like, and probably is. But I think to play there's a lot different than to spend a night there in downtown. Like that's just
100%.
I think it's apples and oranges.
Which is why it's like, what's the point of the player poll even? Because that's going to be everybody's impression of all of those cities, unless it's like New York or LA where you've gone on vacation. But
it's still interesting.
Yeah, no, I guess that's fair. But yeah, it's like I don't know.
If the Jets weren't here, I'd still want to know who the worst is.
Yeah,
and it'd probably be Buffalo. But like, I still want to know who's.
Come on,
3, 4,
Ottawa.
5.
Don't sleep on my boy Ottawa.
Buffalo is probably way worse.
Well,
no, that's fair.
My counter to this is why does it have to be first?
Lyss,
on
you're
the
right.
Athletics article?
Canada. They play in Canada, so that's
they don't play in Ottawa. Why does this part of the player poll though have to be first in the article? Why does it have to be the first thing that people see when they click on the article and scroll? Is the fact that Winnipeg's the worst road city? Like, is that the most important thing that you click on the player poll for?
I think we're being a little like
No,
Okay.
No, I get it. I do realize I need to kind of like check
I
my
don't know, man.
my bias a little bit, but I'm just thinking about like when I go to places, I'm like, okay, like you think about going to Dallas or whatever. It's like, have any of these guys spent a lot of time in the city of Dallas? Like whatever. Like, like I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
What do you mean? Like,
That was just a
No, like what is Dylan DeMello's opinion on the city of Dallas? What has informed his opinion on the city of Dallas? Driving to American Airlines Arena or whatever they play. I don't know what it's called.
Okay, guys.
I feel like we can't talk on both sides of our mouth, you know? This is not that important of a conversation. I know.
It's not, yeah.
It's a player pool of what their opinions are. We don't need them to be PhDs on every freaking subject that they interview.
I mean, I guess.
Listen,
let's galaxy brain it. Why do we care what the players think at all? No, I'm kidding.
Oh my God. Get me off this.
Why does anything matter, actually?
yeah. Let's go.
Listen, I get the sensitivity around it. Like I totally do.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is, as Winnipeggers, just take pride in the fact that once it becomes May and June, everybody's eyes in the hockey world are on this city. Like it's the best fans in the league. The entire city. Like, we're the Green Bay Packers of.
That's a good comparison, actually.
I did not come up with it. Someone did for an article I did. Todd Woodcroft, former Jets assistant coach, did. Though I think other people have mentioned it. But guys, like, do we really need to explain our city to other people? Like, that's the part. Like, you should be, in my opinion, I'm not going to tell anyone how to feel, but I would think that Winnipeggers would kind of rally around the fact that everyone hates them. Like, take that as fuel. Like, why are we just I've seen it all over the place. Great piece by Mike. I love that. It was good to get the players' voices defending it. But so many people are like freaking out. It's like, guys, they got the best goal on the planet to resign. Yeah. They've had no problem doing this. On paper, it probably is the least desirable city.
Yeah.
But it doesn't matter. This is the best fan base of the NHL. That's the thing people should be, and us first the world. Like that should be that's been the mindset of the city. I don't know why it would change now. And then
I love that
Connor being like,
I'm on board.
Connor's like, are they even qualified to do this poll?
Yo, okay. All right.
Throwing him under the bus, even though I'm the one who brought that up. Yeah, that's right. You take the blame.
Connor. Also, I did think Connor said that. Never mind. I'll rip you later, Lyss.
Great. Okay, well, we're delayed here, but let's get to Canada USA.
I'm just plugging my laptop in. 1 second.
Okay. I'll get Lyss's thoughts first. Here, let's even get this guy out of here, and then he'll come back. Lyss, I mean, to say that us as Canadians needed this one over the States, I think would be a massive understatement. Sorry,
I'm actually going to push back on you on that.
Whoa.
I do not like the narrative that Canada needed this one because I think it insinuates that there is stock in this 51st state thing, that this thing matters, that they needed to win because of whatever. I don't like. It was a hockey game. I understand maybe like how it feels, whatever, but like the whole idea of like, because Trump called the players and because the players talked about this and all that stuff from Team USA that Canada needed this, I think makes it feel like if they had lost that there would have been some actual negative repercussions. There wouldn't have been. This is not a real thing. This is stupid mouth service, whatever. Like, I am so glad they did because I like shoving it in my American friends' faces, but I don't think that we need to believe to our cores that there was some larger meaning for this. I don't think there is. So
I think it was just a matter of they needed it in the sense of this is a time where Canada, the economy's crap right now. There's what is supposed to be our biggest ally crapping on us. All these people are just like giving it to us. I think that they needed it because they needed a bit of like this is our moment. Like,
yeah, and I think they needed it in the same way that they needed it a month ago. I don't think the 2 days leading up to it of the whole everyone turning this into Donald Trump should have changed that. If you thought they needed it beforehand, they still needed it. But if you were kind of like about it before, I don't think your opinion should have changed based on those phone calls and the JT Miller comments and whatever and stuff like that. That's just my take, though.
Sure. Yeah. And that's totally fair. I mean, take it for however you want, right? I mean, at its core, it did feel weird. Like the game was about to start and I was like pacing back and forth, like so nervous. Cause I'll just say this real quick. the last 2 years, like starting to professionally cover the Winnipeg Jets, the fandom has taken a massive step back. Like I used to go to Jets games with my family and my dad and my grandparents and mom. Don't do that anymore, obviously, up in the press box covering the team. So I'm not actively cheering. And to have this week or 10 days to actively cheer for a hockey team was so much fun. Pacing back and forth for an hour before Canada USA on Thursday night was so much fun. And like the game started and I was like, this is just a hockey game. Like, this felt weird. Like, why was I so stressed about it? Right. But I gotta say, when Connor McDavid scored, and I don't know, one of the things that one of our concerns, Jacob, before the tournament was that there wouldn't be enough time to make lasting hockey memories. And I shared that concern with you. That wasn't a criticism of the tournament. It was something we were watching for. Like, oh, this is a really short tournament. Like, I don't know how this is going to turn out. Man, that goal and the people I shared that moment with and high-fiving everyone and hugging everyone, I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. I'll never forget all the games for the rest of my life of this tournament, pacing back and forth in overtime against Sweden. The first 9 seconds of the U.S. game and Connor McDavid's opening goal that sent the Bell Center into a frenzy. Watching the game on Monday with my grandparents, who I used to watch the Sochi Olympics with back in 2014. Like this tournament was just awesome on so many levels. And I know I said to you guys that I was a 12 out of 10 excited before the tournament started. That exceeded my expectations. And I didn't think that was possible. And to have that moment for the rest of my life of Connor McDavid scoring and going nuts with my family and friends and hugging everyone. I blacked out for 10 minutes. I don't even remember it. And then to go on my phone the next day and be scrolling and see that everyone else in Canada had that same experience is so awesome. Like all the bars across the city, all the house parties, everyone has that little lean forward when they realize McDavid is wide open and then he scores and everyone just goes nuts. It's like, to think that our concern about the tournament at the start, that maybe there wouldn't be any lasting hockey memories was so, like in hindsight, was so ridiculous because, man, that Connor McDavid goal I will never forget for the rest of my life. I don't know which one of you want to follow it up, but
well, I mean, I'll start by saying I think you're totally right, and that was something that I knew going into the tournament. I was like, it'll be cool for all of us. Mm-hmm. And what I meant by all of us, though, at the time was everybody, like say Talkie Twitter, for example. Everyone's gonna be watching the same games. No games overlap. Everyone's gonna be watching together. We're all locked in on the same thing. This isn't like there's other NHL games going on at the same time or something like that. Like this is like everyone's gonna be watching the same thing, all eyes on the same thing. But holy smokes. I don't know the last time, like I went on Instagram afterwards and of the, few 100,000, whatever people I follow, sorry, I mean hundreds or thousands. I don't follow 100,000 people on Instagram, but like every single Instagram story was the win graphic. Everyone was paying attention. Everyone was locking in. And I love that. I love that feeling. But I think what I liked about this tournament that was so fun was that obviously we put together a video and we made our mock Four Nations roster. And when they put out the roster, we all had a lot of questions or whatever. But I felt over the course of that tournament, I was watching it and I was like, you know what? I totally get why Brandon Hagel's on this team. Mm-hmm. I was like, you know what? I totally get why Seth Jarvis is on this team. And I kind of felt like this team became special to me. Like there wasn't a time, like, going into it, I was like, oh, like maybe this guy shouldn't have been on the roster. Where is Mark Scheifele? All that sort of stuff. That was gone for me by the beginning of the tournament, frankly. Like as the tournament progressed, I just came even more bought into the idea of this team as a unit. And I think that was just such a fun thing. It's so easy to like rally behind a team that you believe in as a group. And I really did enjoy this team as a group. And it was really fun to watch. Like
Brandon Hagel is now one of my favorite players in the NHL after this 10-day tournament because he's shit talking their group chat. I'm playing for the flag, not for the cameras. Like that is incredible. That is incredible. He stands up to Matthew Tkachuk in the first 9 seconds of the bell start. Like I love this
and that's
guy.
So good
because
awesome. I think every team had their own, like so many, like Jets fans so many people were like, holy smokes, I get the Connor Hellebuyck hype now. Holy smokes, I get the Josh Morrissey hype now. And same thing, Tampa Bay fans are like, this is what we've been trying to tell you about Brandon Hagel. And like, I think every team, every person watching also had that second layer of like, this is my guy. And now you guys are seeing why he's my guy. And I think that's a really fun feeling to have as a hockey fan as well.
And I think part of it as well is what Al Broderick says here. It's great for your generation to have that game for your memory. We haven't had this. We talked about this going into the tournament. There hasn't been best on best for 9 years. So for it to come back and for the best player in the world to be left wide open in the slot to score, and then Chris Cuthbert's call, Connor McDavid scores for Canada, like the red jerseys in Boston that were going nuts. Like man, that goal, without exaggerating, including like the Spanish call and the Czech Republic call and all the other calls, without exaggerating, I think I've watched it near 500 times. The Connor
The
McDavid
Spanish call is amazing.
The Spanish call is amazing. It
That
sounds
call
like
is awesome.
It's so great. I love it so much. And man, yeah, like every time that goal pops up on my feed, it's got Crosby golden goal for me where I'm going to watch it. Every time I see it, I'm going to watch it. I'm never going to scroll past the Connor McDavid OT winner against the US. And yeah, that was incredible. I don't know if there's anything else. I did want to ask you guys if there were any players in the tournament that you wouldn't bring back. I see a lot of people talking about the Olympics. Are there any players that didn't necessarily play their way off the team but didn't like solidify their role? Jacob, I'll start that question with you.
Okay, I have an answer, but it's partially how they played and partially a matter of this is a year from now.
Yes.
I'm gonna go with Doughty and Marchand.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I think I could see Hockey Canada, given some of their histories of loyalty, not wanting to take an Alex Pietrangelo because of him just deciding I don't want to do this. That said, I don't know what the if he decided not to do it, injury or not legitimacy, I think there's some other reasons too. So I don't want to assume too much, but
yeah,
could see them kind of holding that against him if he just did opt out. I think that on the bigger ice surface,
it's not. It's being played on NHL ice. I saw this yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, I learned that yesterday.
I know that.
My source is J Fresh Hockey, so maybe it's not true, but he said that.
He's usually sarcastic.
He is.
I don't know.
That would be news
Keep
to
going.
me.
Keep going.
Okay, I'll keep going. No. If so, that's buckle up, folks. We'll have another 3-minute discussion. But
no.
Yeah, so like I think that like Marchand, what made Brad Marchand awesome, it's not really there anymore to the same degree. And I think that we're talking about a matter of inches and very small things, but I don't see Brad being one of the best players to make it. I think, am I wrong to say he kind of got there this year on merit? Like, I think is he one of the best 23 Canadian or best 12 forwards right now? Because Canadian, I mean, you'd have a hard time.
And I will say he was one of the first 6 players named to the roster, like locked in. There was no question that Brad Marchand was going to be on the team. And Lyss and I did the video picking our team, and we were like, I don't even know if we have Brad Marchand here. And he was like already mentioned or already named at the earliest you possibly could.
I just think that by next year we'll be past the whole like idea that he has to be there as a locker room guy. I think you got enough leadership.
You'll have Sid. You'll have Sid.
You got no shortage of it.
Yeah, and you'll have Stone.
Just didn't impress me. I know he had that nice saucer pass. there's so many times I found, and like this seemed to be a bold take of mine. A lot of people seem to really like what Drew Doughty did. I didn't really.
Well, I think it's so hard in a tournament like this where it's like, for example, same thing with you. Everyone talk about like Adam Fox and all these sorts of things. It's like, these are the best players in the world.
I know.
Like, of course you're going to think like if you say, Mark Stone wasn't super great. People are like, what are you talking about? Like, it's Mark Stone. It's like, yes, I get that. But if we're using what that player is capable of as the measuring stick, not comparing him to fourth liners in the NHL, right? Like I think it's super reasonable to be critical of certain guys like Kyle Connor, guys like Drew Doughty. Like, were they as good as what they maybe wanted to be? No.
Yeah. I will say one player to flip that and say, I think they've earned their way onto next year's roster is Thomas Harley. I mean, this guy wasn't even supposed to be here. And on Saturday night against the States in Montreal, I thought he looked great. Thursday night against the States in the final, I thought he looked great. I thought he looked better than Travis Sanheim, who was initially named to the roster. So I really like Thomas Harley. And I think I think if Canada came into next year with Devon Toews, Josh Morrissey, Thomas Harley as their left side, that's pretty solid, pretty good starting block there. And then obviously you have Cale Makar and whoever you want on the right side. So it's going to be so much fun watching the Olympics next year. Watching Canada and the game.
Do you have an update on the ice surface thing?
I think it's true.
Really?
NHL?
Apparently it might have been a condition of the NHL players going back to it, but I think so. I don't know. They'll still
Craig
try and
Button
fact
was
check
on the
this a
show
little bit
this
more.
week.
Wait a second.
Craig-
The Vancouver games was on NHL size rinks.
Was it?
Well, it was in Rogers' place or whatever when Crosby scored the goal.
It's NBC says that it saved organizers $10 million in renovation costs. Yet at this point, just play it on regular ice. Like, I don't know why we go Olympic.
Yeah, I don't know, but
I think it might be on NHL ice, but we will let you folks know if we find out.
I'd rather
otherwise,
see
or-
best on best on NHL sized ice. I don't care to see who is wanting Olympic sized ice and what are we trying to prove. Like, frankly,
yeah. I agree. One more thing before we move on to trending up, trending down, where we only have one game to talk about, but we have a clean slate because we picked Four Nations players last week, so we could pick anyone. Guess who won the? It is just kind of trippy. It means absolutely nothing. Sidney Crosby scored the golden goal on Ryan Miller, 3-2 in overtime to beat the States. Ryan Miller won the Vezina that year. I don't know what happened later on, but how trippy would it be if Connor McDavid scores the golden goal on Connor Hellebuyck and then he goes on to win the Vezina? Like, I don't know. And he's by far the front runner.
So I hate
so
you out, but it's gonna happen.
I know. So I don't know. I just found that weird. I went back and looked at Ryan Miller's stats the year that he got the golden goal scored on him, and I was like, those are really good. Then I looked at the Vezina, I was like, 2010, Ryan Miller. Look at that. Interesting. Again, that comment means absolutely nothing. I just thought it was interesting to mention. Let's get to trending up, trending down. Like I said, we have a clean slate. Actually, one last thing on Canada USA. I just saw this graphic here and I wanted to bring
I'm not done.
So I'm not done. The ratings, the NHLPR posted this. Let me just read it off for our podcast listeners. Thursday's epic US versus Canada Four Nations Faceoff Championship garnered 16.1 million viewers across North America. This is the second most watched hockey game in North America in a decade. Last year's Edmonton Oilers Florida Panthers Stanley Cup Final Game 7 drew 16.3 million viewers across North America, so just short of that Stanley Cup Final Game 7. The championship game reached 1 out of every 4 Canadians on Sportsnet platforms. Thursday night's Canada-USA game was the most viewed non-NFL event ever on ESPN Plus in the States. The broadcast topped every U.S. cable telecast from September 2024 to now, except for NFL, college football, and election coverage. And the entire 7-game best-on-best tournament averaged 6.5 million viewers across North America, up 256% from the 2016 World Cup of Hockey. And reading those and just knowing that there were so many American hockey fans who was their first game, they were learning the game of hockey on Thursday night, and then they had their hearts broken. It was very fun. I'm taking a lot of pride in that. Maybe I shouldn't be, but I don't know. These ratings are pretty impressive. The fact that 16.1 million viewers in North America watch the game. Let's get to trending up, trending down. And like I said last week, Jacob and I only picked Four Nations Faceoff players. So we can pick anyone. We can pick Four Nations Faceoff players if we want. There was one game this week. We can pick Winnipeg Jets players. They were there, obviously, last night with the 4-3 win over the St. Louis Blues. So let's get right into it. This is Trending Up, Trending Down, a segment where we outline who is trending up or down for the Winnipeg Jets over the past week of play. Like I said, we picked Four Nations players last week, so we can pick anyone on the Winnipeg Jets. But you let us know in the comments below who's your pick for trending up or trending down this week. And while you're down there, make sure you hit the like button. Would let YouTube know that we're putting out some great content here at WST, and we would really appreciate it. So, Lyss, we'll have you go first because I know Jacob hates to go last for trending down, especially after a win. Who's your pick for trending up this week?
I'm gonna go with nobody is surprised. Gabe Vilardi. Gabe Vilardi gets my trending up for this week. Obviously, the 2 goals last night were big. The second one was super clutch. We don't need to rehash all that because we spoke about it earlier in the episode. But this is a guy that we've talked about this. If he starts to really get rolling, it's a really, really difficult threat to manage. And it's a different threat than anyone else on the Jets really provides. So it's really fun and adds to the diversity of the scoring options that exist. Matt Hyman in the chat agrees with me. Vilardi's my trending up for this week.
There you go. Jacob, who you got for trending up?
Dylan Sandberg. Josh
Nice.
Morrissey's out for a game. Not that we needed any, proof that Sandberg can shoulder those minutes, but he comes in 26 minutes a night. I think it's a career high for him, and he was great. He had a lot of. There was a play, I think it was the second or third period, where he stopped a 2-on-1 from Jordan Kyrou just by sprawling down, just classic stuff of Dylan Samberg. I love what the players become. It's going to be a pricey extension. I think this is a workhorse number one.
Keeps going
Maybe
up.
not too pricey. I should say. I kind of look at it like Jacob Slavin, how he got that big discount, but not the craziest. Like it's just $6 million for 8 years because they don't really score as many points, and it could help the Jets' favor. But nobody doubting how important a piece like that is, and the fact that Jets have that on their second pairing, first PK unit, is a real blessing, and it's going to come up handy come playoff time.
For sure. Have to agree there. I'm going to steal a lot of the people's comments here in the chat. Eric Comrie, I thought he was great last night. He kept the Jets in it at times when they were under siege. And then in overtime, I mean, he made a few massive saves. And then in the shootout, I mean, someone brought it up earlier in the show. I'm not sure who it was, but they mentioned how the shootout, the first two shootout shooters for the Blues was like the exact same move. It was just one guy was a righty, one guy was a lefty. They fake shot, go to the backhand, try and go blocker side. And Comrie stopped both and then got the paddle on the Braden Shen one to win it. So I'm going to go with Eric Comrie. And like you said, Jacob, maybe playing more down the stretch, we will have to wait and see for that. I get to go first for trending down as well, which is fun after a win. I am going to go with Ville Heinola. Got back in the lineup. Sorry, Lyss. He got back in the lineup and didn't. I mean, we've had this conversation how many times. I think you saw Stanley and Heinola and really all the defensemen outside of Samberg and maybe Pionk as well, even though he had a pretty rough game. This kind of exposed the Jets' defensive depth without Josh Morrissey. So I'm going to go with Ville Heinola, who with Colin Miller, I thought didn't have his best outing. Again, he hasn't played in how long, so I'm not blaming him too much for that, but I'm still going to
No
go
one's played that long, though.
Right. True. Anyways, who's next?
Sorry.
Jacob, I believe. Then it's Lyss. Jacob, trending
down.
Who you got?
Like
you could pick a Four Nations player if
okay.
You're blanking on the Jets too. You could pick anything. You could pick Brock Nelson's chances of being traded to the Jets. Like that is a trending. I don't know.
I like you have to re-explain to me the rules every time. I would say trending down. I'll say Team USA's decision making. I still think that Kyle Connor should have played in that game. Like I really believe so. Pierre LeBrun had a great tweet where it was like, in a game where it comes down to one shot, one moment, why not have like that player out there? And I so agree. And I just it boggled my mind. Also, he didn't play 1 second on the penalty kill in the tournament. Which
gotta run 2 minutes of JT Miller. You gotta do it.
No, but JT and Hrabchak should be PK1 100% in my opinion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But like, if you're deciding between Brock Nelson and Kyle Connor, and I know Brock Nelson's killed penalties, but wouldn't you rather have a second penalty kill unit of Dylan Larkin and Kyle Connor? And
just so
crazy
much
thought,
speed.
like you're sweet. You got to kind of do fire versus fire there. I think that was overthought in my opinion, and I think that they thought size was needed. Like they already brought Kreider in for that reason. They already had they had size. I think they overthought it. So sorry, Mike Sullivan. I'm not a fan.
Mike Sullivan trending down, or Team USA's decision making in general. Lyss, who do you have for trending down this week?
I'm gonna go kind of off the board because I see the comments. Oh yeah, is one game a trend? That's all we got to work with right now. So we're kind of
that
just
is true.
But I'll go a little bit bigger picture. Mason Appleton is going to be my trending down. I just need to get a little bit more excited about him. I think that, as we're getting closer to the playoffs, like for example, yesterday we saw the reunion of Lowry, Niederreiter, Appleton. Obviously, before Lowry's injury, he was playing up in the top six with Nikolai Ehlers, and we're looking at some other options. I knew that there was always a chance that the Jets would kind of revert back to that line, and it is what it is. But if that line is going to stick together, I need to get a little bit more excited about Mason Appleton in order for that line to kind of have higher impact going into the playoffs and stuff. So it's not a very offensive trending down. It's not like I'm, upset with Mason Appleton. There's not really a whole lot to really write home about in terms of trending down right now. So it's a general trending down.
Like our show 2 weeks ago, I'm going to say this. It is very tough to do trending down when the Jets just keep winning. Like they've won 9 straight games. How are we supposed to pick 3 players who we didn't pick last week who are playing bad or like trending down? Like I don't, it's tough. It's tough. And again, yeah, is one game a trend? It's not, but Ville Heinola got in for one game, so I'm going to take him for trending down. That was trending up, trending down, coming off of 9 straight wins for the Winnipeg Jets. So definitely a little bit tougher on the down. But thanks for participating in the chat. We really appreciate it. That is going to do it for that segment. And we're going to tee up our very next one. We're going to get right into it. This is one burning question where we throw it to you, the chat room, for any question that you may have for us regarding the Winnipeg Jets, maybe the upcoming trade deadline or the Four Nations, whatever you want to ask about, we are free game. We're going to attempt to rapid fire through these questions. So drop your question in the chat below. And like I said earlier, while you're down there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss all the great content we're putting out here. You don't miss WST Sunday Live. Maybe you're just joining us now. You slept in on a Sunday. Understandable. Hit that subscribe and the notification so you don't miss it every single time we go live and every single time the big show goes live as well. You know they're going live Monday through Friday, 1 to 3:30 nowadays. It's getting closer to 3:30. It's usually 1 to 3, but they're pushing it a little bit longer now these days with the Jets winning in Canada and all that fun stuff. So my question to you both, do you regret not being as excited as me for the Four Nations Faceoff? Either of you can answer, actually.
I'm gonna say no because I still watched all the games and my behavior did not change. But no, I definitely enjoyed it a little bit more. And I think, it's a conversation for a rainy day to talk about kind of the strategy behind the decision making of, we kind of were like, oh, should they have brought that many depth guys or whatever? And I think maybe they were onto something. Maybe they were right. And I should have gotten a little bit more excited about the Brandon Hagels and Anthony Scarellis of the world because they were fun to watch.
Sam Bennett, we ripped the Sam Bennett pick forever, and then he scored to tie the game and send it in late in the second period in the championship game. I don't know. I agree with you. When you saw how intense those games were, especially Saturday night, leading into the final, the picks for Hagel and Cirelli and Bennett made a little bit more sense for sure. Jacob,
does it change? Remember, we asked a question of would you keep the picks the same and stuff? Does it change if you can't fight and if it's not NHL rules? Because if
Bennett and Cirelli and those guys,
if roughing's gonna be called a lot looser,
yeah, that is true.
I get the forechecking ability. Just the thought I'm throwing out there.
Yeah. And then you get people saying they want Tom Wilson on the roster. I'm over here keeping an eye on Macklin Celebrini. I know he's only going to be 19 at next year's Olympics, but
he's my 1 seed. Don't worry, he'll be
pretty good. Yeah. So I don't know. It's going to be a lot of fun decisions or fun conversations to have because we got best on best back and it's coming back in under a year. This time by this day next year, the gold medal game will have been played already. So it's good. It's back on a yearly basis now, and I could not be more excited. First question here: which roster player is Chevy most likely to ship out in a trade? I know Jacob might have said Namestnikov maybe an episode or so ago before he signed the extension. I know
floated out the idea.
Floated it out, yeah. So who do you think is the most likely if there was a player
or Kupari? But probably Gustafson, even though I disagree with it.
Okay. Does Ville Heinola count as a roster player?
Yep.
Somehow, yes.
Barely.
I think that's one as well that is just to get down to the 23 man. I think and if they end up waiving him, who cares?
Yeah. Question here from Dark Moon: will the Jets sign Brock Besser? Is he a potential trade deadline target for either of you? Because the Canucks are right on the playoff line. I believe is a pending UFA. The Jets have liked Besser, allegedly have liked Besser for a long time, even in the draft. Yeah, it's a good question. Second line with who? Bump Perfetti down. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be very Tyler Toffoli-esque. I'm not doubting that.
Yeah, no. I'm gonna say no on that one.
I'm gonna say no as well. I think Cole Perfetti I just put my notebook away. I think it's a 6-game point streak and 10 points in his last 7, if I'm remembering that off the top of my head. That, I think, is convincing the Jets a little bit to not go after a winger like they did last year, where Perfetti had the massive goal drought going into the deadline, and then maybe the Jets were like, oh, we need a top 6 winger, so they went out and traded for Toffoli. I think that is coming down a little bit, and Perfetti's proving that he can be a solid middle 6 to top 6 option as a winger. Rat River Rebel asks, regardless of where he signs, what is Neil Pionk's value in the NHL after this year? This is a great question.
It's a great question.
Who wants to take it first?
$7 million.
7.
That sounds about right to me.
Okay. Yeah.
I would agree with you.
I'd fall right in that camp as well. He's a right shot defenseman. GMs love paying for points and time on ice for defensemen. So
I could see it creeping into like a slightly like difference of $1 million up or down based on term as well. But I think that ballpark sounds about right to me.
It won't be down.
Yeah. I mean, what is he making? 5.7,
5.9, right?
Yeah, no, he'll definitely make more. Yeah. But I could see him, like, and making like, no, I agree.
For sure. This question right here, I do just want to say we talked about this off the top of the show, so we're gonna skip it. Go back to the start. Jacob outlined his Eric Comrie piece well, and whether or not Hellebuyck might play less down the stretch than years past. So we covered that earlier on in the show. Doug asked, do Ford and or Lambert get called up when the roster gets expanded? This is another great question.
That is a great question. I don't
know. Immediately, but maybe probably for the playoffs. They'll be in the skate group.
Yeah, like the Moose are not going to be competing for anything for the rest of the season. Like, let's be super real about that.
They still want them to play.
Yeah, so they'll still want them to play. So I think like as we get closer to the end of their season, these are the two. I think that Doug is right. I think these would probably be the two that I would think the Jets would bring up. I don't really foresee anybody else getting the call. Even on the back end, Salomonsson, like I'm thinking forwards. These two, I think Salomonsson would be the guy on D as well. I don't think that they're going to go the direction of any of the Bartos and Saunders and Lundmarks of the world or anything like that. But especially because they have a lot of defensemen right now. But also Dylan Coughlin, I think will be one of the first guys to get a boost because he's been pretty good lately as well. But I think they probably do when the roster gets expanded, so long as they still get to play some games before that.
Right. Yeah, Dylan Coughlin keeps popping up because I have the Moose goal notifications on my phone. It's like,
Dylan Coughlin
scored again. Wow, weird. Yeah, just seeing his name a lot. That's for sure. Darth Skater, will a Four Nations game ever be played outside of Montreal, Toronto? I know the NHL for the World Cup in 2028 was starting bidding, and there's this push to like get games in Europe. So that would be pretty interesting if the 2028 World Cup of hockey was in Europe. But I think right now, I think it's more likely that it's in North America, given how successful the Four Nations was and the fact that the Olympics are in Italy. So maybe it'll come back in 2028. Not sure there, but
I could see a nice little Vancouver, Seattle action. I think could be really fun in the next little bit. Winnipeg, Minnesota. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah,
Vancouver would be wild. Like, what if Sidney Crosby's like 40 and like still playing in the 2028 World Cup, and it's in Vancouver, and it's like Canada, US, and the gold, like. That'd be hilarious. And it's tied 2-2 in overtime. Like, could you imagine? Oh, man. And then he scores and then he retires. He announces his retirement.
You're crazy.
After the game.
Nurse this one right here. Get it.
Announces his retirement right after the game in his post-game press conference. No, I'm kidding. Question from Tom Hank here. Jets' lack of success on the faceoffs will bite them in the playoffs, he says. Will this be an area Chevy addresses before the deadline? When they bring in a center, do you think they'll prioritize faceoffs? Either of you? Lyss, Jacob?
I could take this one. You're not going to like my answer. No. I know that the Jets do prioritize faceoffs, putting Adam Lowry out there yesterday. Every single faceoff is a 50-50 chance with a little bit of margin, everything here and there. And you can win a draw and lose possession, all these things. I don't think you need to galaxy brain that. Bringing in faceoff guys who aren't good at hockey is not a valuable addition for a hockey team to do. It's a nice add-on, but as a determining factor of whether or not you want someone on your team, I think we got to look bigger picture than that. Mm-hmm. Face-offs can be really, really high impact moments. I totally get that. And hockey is a game of moments. But I think if we overemphasize large moments when they have really negligible odds, like it's really, I don't think that it's that big of a deal. And I also don't think it's been a huge kryptonite for the Winnipeg Jets this year either.
Fair. I think that's fair. I mean, they're the number one team in the NHL, and they're the first to 40 wins and all these other things. And faceoffs have been a concern, and I think that they might target that, Jacob.
I think that they'll target it. I do. So? I really think so. I think that no matter what we think or believe or whatever, teams prioritize faceoffs and look at it still. And I think that that's an area, especially coaches, where they want to have that specialist or just someone that is able to win an important draw. I think like Lowry's faceoffs are down a little bit this year, I believe. But I think that the injury he had was a bit nagging for a bit. So I'm curious to see how he does from here onward. So that's something to note. But you heard the Jets being linked to Scott Lawton. That makes a lot of sense, I think. And how good would that fourth line be of Iafallo, Lawton, and whoever?
Yeah.
That's as good of a fourth line as you're going to find in the NHL.
And definitely don't underestimate like the coach trust factor. Like if they went on and got a guy who's great on faceoffs and great defensively, like Scott O'Neill would love that player, and kind of rightfully so. Like it's why John Cooper took Anthony Cirelli for the Olympic team and played him in almost every single defensive zone draw, not the Olympic team, Four Nations. But yeah, that's the coach trust factor, right? Question from Gregory Liverpool. What are your thoughts on Eric Comrie on the cost of hockey equipment? I think this one's pretty simple for us all to agree on.
Yeah. No,
right.
I have nothing.
Lyss is a huge champion for gouging the prices up. So Gregory wants to know if Lyss's thoughts have changed.
I actually think we should make hockey less accessible because I would like more rich white boys playing this sport. That's what I need in my.
Yeah.
No, I thought it was great. But the one thing I will say that it is nice to hear someone like Eric Comrie who comes from an extremely just financially at least privileged upbringing. Obviously we know kind of his family situation there. It's really nice to see that kind of acknowledgement coming from the guys that have a little bit more impact to make change in those areas. So really glad that he made the comments that he did, and I completely agree. Ice time equipment, all these sorts of things, especially goalie equipment, he's totally right on that. Extremely expensive, especially for kids who grow out of things. Very, very inaccessible sport, and there are a lot of organizations that do a really good job of working on building up these sorts of programs and stuff. So I think we're kind of on the right track, but this needs to continue to be addressed. So I'm really glad that was something that he brought up.
I couldn't agree more with everything you said. Yeah, when I saw Eric Comrie speak up about it, I was like, hell yeah! Like it's about damn time someone in the NHL said something about it, right? Because it is a real thing for sure. Let's go to the next question here. Vern asking, what is the importance of cup winning experience in the locker room? You hear this thrown around a lot. And Canada had way more cup winners than the US, and a lot of people pointed to that as well. The experience of having been there and won. Do you guys think that's valuable? I've come around on this a little bit in recent years. I used to think that this is not valuable at all. When the Colorado Avalanche won the cup, they had like no one who had like been there, done that, or like only a few players, and they were like this very young up and coming team. And I was like, see, it doesn't matter. But now I'm starting to turn on it a little bit. Like I do think having been there, done that does matter.
I mean, I'll just say super briefly, like it's the sort of thing that I just look at it similarly to I do face-offs. Would I prefer that every single player on the team that I cheer for has Stanley Cup winning experience and some experience? Of course. Great. Would love it. Would I prefer Jack Johnson over Mikko Rantanen pre-winning a cup with the Colorado Avalanche? No. Like it's important to look at who the player is as well. I don't think that we should galaxy brain it too much. It is a nice thing to have, and I do think that there is some truth to that statement for sure. But I think being a good hockey player is kind of the most important part there. But if you can have both, let's have both. I get that.
This is the last question here, Jacob. I'll throw this one to you. Who is the most favorable opponent for round one right now? If the season ended today, it would be Vancouver. The Jets would be playing in the first round. What do you think? Who's the most favorable opponent between like Vancouver and Calgary, and then like who's the second wild card? Colorado, I guess. Minnesota?
The most favorable would be Calgary, but I don't think Vancouver is far off because they are dysfunctional and everything is a tire fire. Yeah. Whereas Calgary, as much as I think it's more desirable on paper, they're a lot more in sync. So I think the Jets would win either of these series is very decidedly, very easily. But it's a tie for me. Maybe I would say Vancouver. Actually, I'm going to change my answer. I'd say Vancouver.
I love the fact, as you know, been very patriotic this week, that we could get an all Canadian round one matchup. And like Vancouver, Calgary, and the Jets. I think that would be awesome. Even though we'd all have to stay up late with Vancouver.
Yeah.
Like the games here would be at 9 p.m. I know people hated that last year because the Jets were on the wrong side of it. The games here on weeknights would be at 9 p.m. unfortunately, but
Jacob, I think you're so right. The whole concept, like the dysfunction of it, like when you have a team that's a little bit more like banding together, ready to go and all that. I think in big moments, I think this Vancouver Canucks team might just fall apart. And we know the playoffs are full of big moments. So
True. That is for sure. Matt asked, did I sleep in that jersey? This is a Connor McDavid 4 Nations jersey. I haven't taken it off since Thursday. No, I'm kidding. I took it off to sleep. I actually wore it the next day. And now obviously today I wore it the next day out, like just running errands. And everyone's like, go Canada. Everyone's like, nice jersey. Like, I don't know. Everyone's so excited. It was so Canadian. I was like, this is so awesome. And of course I bought the Connor McDavid before the tournament. Little did I know, right? Pretty incredible. Anyways, that is it for one burning question. Thank you everyone for taking part. There were some fantastic questions in the chat today. Gave us a lot to talk about as we went long today. I didn't even realize it's 10:20. Having too much fun.
I gotta go.
USA. You gotta go. Okay. Well, we'll wrap.
Bronze medal game at 11.
Yeah. Okay. Lock in. Thank you everyone for watching. We really appreciate it. WST Sunday Live. Make sure you hit the like button down below. And we'll be back next Sunday. A lot of games next week, including a Saturday night home game against Philly. So we'll be breaking down all of those games. We'll have some better picks for trending up, trending down because there's bigger sample size to work from. And enjoy the games this week. Should be really fun. And enjoy the big show. They'll be back tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Of course, Huss and Remo breaking down this win over the Blues and so much more. So thanks everyone for watching. We really appreciate it. We will see you next time on the next edition of WST Sunday Live. Have a great Sunday, everyone, and enjoy the games this week. See ya.